Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 323. Hopefully, you guys have had an amazing Saturday. I sure did. Even more so, I've got an amazing guest for us tonight. You know him on Instagram as Harti Gear. Of course, this is Alex Harti. How you doing, Alex? You want to tell us how you're doing this evening and where we can find you?
I'm feeling pretty good today. I got to do a little powder skiing myself on this Saturday evening, and I'm best found at Hardy Gear, like I said, on Instagram, HARTI, and that's my ancestors' family name. That used to grow hemp in the old country, and I've adopted that for my seed company name.
So, I just want to quickly give you a shout out for that episode on a Future Cannabis Project the other day. It was an amazing episode, which, like I told you before the show, had me super curious and wanting more. So I had to invite you on to tell our listeners uh, about yourself. So, welcome and thank you for coming, first off.
Cool, cool. Yeah, it's it definitely I got a story, and a lot of people once they hear it and they keep hearing it and you start getting more aspects to it. I mean, this guy's full of shit. No, I lived more before I was 40 years old than most people ever watch on television before they're 80. Actually, that's I've done some things and been there, and I haven't done all of it, but I did do quite a bit, and I'm going to do a lot more.
Yeah, I don't say anybody's full of shit with some of the shit they do. You just never know, and anymore, man. A lot of these people like yourselves that I meet, man, more than I'm just jealous, man. It seems like I'm laggy. I've been laggy with life experience compared to some of you guys, man. A little jealous,
Well,
if anything.
we all have a different part of what I said was we all have this different aspect of life. We all have a different um, reality. We've all come to this place from a whole different set of experiences and challenges and blessings, right? So like you can never really compare yourself to other people. You can only compare yourself to where you were before and to see where you are later and if I improve myself. You know what I'm saying? Whether we're talking about artwork or we're talking about growing or we're talking about self improvement or having a crazy lifestyle. Um, if you compare yourself to other people, you're going to put yourself down all the time because there's all sorts of people doing crazy stuff and you're doing your stuff. And um, it is what that is, right? And if you see someone doing something better than you want to be doing, do it, right? It's it's kind of I did a bunch of stuff. I wouldn't trade a single one for any of the pain I'm in or whatever when I feel it. But maybe we'll start in reverse this time, and I'll start. I'll list off. Um, I've broken my neck twice. Never knew it. Never. None of this stuff's ever been set by doctors. None of it's ever been. It was all figured out just in the last like 6 years. Um, so they told me I had carpal tunnel my whole life, but apparently I broke my neck twice. Um, I have 7 discs are gone, missing, herniated from the entire spine. There's two edema of the thoracic spine that kind of like when the pressure changes, it kind of squeezes and twists if I'm overworked or underworked, whatever. My muscles in my spine kind of start tweaking on me, and my whole spine I just got to lay down. Pressure changes when the storms blow through. But then going down, there's no ACL on the right knee, no MCL, PCL, or cartilage in the left knee. I've broken both my hands, crushed this right clavicle. It was never set. Got run over by a car, the, the right foot, right leg. And after that, I decided it's like, yeah, I guess I'm immortal. I'm going to stop testing this stuff. It hurts. and, um, but I was treated with cannabis, and opiates messed me up when I was younger, and I guess I don't know. We could go back like I did, starting early, and tell a story from when I was a kid. If that.
Yeah, that's actually usually where we start off here on the show is, that's my usually like one of my first questions is, when was cannabis introduced to your life? Either, growing it or, your first experience using the plant. And then we kind of usually just roll from there.
Sure. So with the plant specifically, I was 14, 13 years old, and been around the family. It was my brothers, my sister, also like great uncles at family reunions and things like that. People all walks of life. There was pretty big parties. We'd have 300 to 500 people would get together, and some people would be smoking, some people would be drinking, and but for me, it was family friend and a tinfoil pipe, and I think it was resin actually was the first thing I ever smoked. But I had already been playing American football, and my back hurt, and it felt great. Um, but by the time I was 14 years old, my first job working on a fishing boat going out in the Pacific Ocean, Southern California, Newport Beach, and I was the deckhand and galley slave. And on the boat, we got to smoking for seasickness. We I was the youngest guy on the boat, so they'd have the lowest slimes take the green gilled landlubbers out on the bows to stop chumming the deck, and you'd burn a stick of rope with them. And that's what the old mariners would say is we'd burn a stick of rope, and that was a joint, and the rope is the cannabis, the same plant that they would get uh, back once upon a time ago, it'd be coming out of like Durban, and now things spread around the world, and you get it all over the place. But um, it's also what they made the ropes out of back in the day. So it was the Mexi weed though that we had for the patrons there getting seasick. They would take 2 hits off a little joint, and that was it. They'd stop smoking, and they'd be fine. No more puking, and thanks. That was amazing. And I'm gonna take a little condensing to get them to do it, but they'd try it. But if we only had chronic for the triangle, it would make them sicker, and they puke harder, and that was my introduction to medical marijuana, and that was 1985 when I was working on the fishing boat at the age of 14. Um, Another thing happened on the boat though, there was these two bikers that would come out, Big Ed and Jeff. I don't think I talked about Big Ed and Jeff the other talk. These guys were a couple of bikers, and they were just huge guys. Big Ed had to have been 400 pounds or more, and Jeff was a good 300 plus. And they had a fishing business. So they'd come out on the fishing boat, and they would catch fish all day, and they'd get off the boat, and there was a fish dealer next door, and they sell whatever fish they caught and take the receipts, and that was their cover for their hundreds of pounds of press weed or whatever it was that they were moving back in the day through their biker channels. And they would come out on the boat and fish, and hey, these guys were huge, so they had to eat. So they were like constantly like they didn't have cash to give me for they ran out of cheeseburger money. So they'd start pulling out buds, joints, and paying me galley fees with cannabis. And so those guys were some of my first suppliers personally. Knew them for 3 or 4 years. And some of my first hydroponic came from them, some scraggly stuff back in the day. But yeah, that was the very beginning. We all we'd been growing organic vegetables and around the house, and I grew up growing on family farms and neighborhood farms in Southern California, Los Angeles, between my grandparents' houses, and not cannabis but plants. And like the fig farm that I got to work on when I was 6 years old taught me reverence for the plants. Where grandmother had all sorts of specimen plants growing. Uncle was the actual master gardener back in the 70s through the university program. Right now, we all joke about people being the master gardener and stuff, but back in the 70s, when you had that was a pretty rare certification, and it's a real thing. Or you go through a class and learn about gardening, and so we had beehives and hundreds of specimen plants and compost pile stuff. And the house I grew up on, actually had amazing soil and fruit trees and the same kind of stuff and multiple gardens. And um, we started putting seeds in the ground there. And 86, me and my brother decided that, hey, skunk is gone. And it's kind of the funny thing to hear people say today. It's like, there's no such thing as skunk. And we were saying it back then, right? And it's a joke. It's like skunk has never been gone. It's always been here. And it's just, there's like, what does skunk smell like? It smells different to everyone. We all have a different idea of what this smell is. So it's kind of hard to say, yeah, the true skunk that's the skunk man bred back then, that's gone. And there was stuff way before that was from the early 70s that was called skunk, and that stuff's gone. But there's skunky smelling stuff. Um, so so we popped like 200 Mexi seeds with the protocol and figuring out like this is how we're going to grow our skunk weed because that's how Sam did it. He crossed Thai and Afghan and Mexi weed and then bred it. And then bred it. He bred 10 plants, 10 plants, 10 plants, 10 plants, 10 plants, and checked them all and just kept on checking them all. And that's what true breeding is. And but that once upon a time ago, back in the 80s, right?
So when you were on there the other day, uh, one of my past guests here, Red Pill 710, great guy I interviewed the other night. He was on the Wormhole last night, and we were discussing you coming on the show. And he says, he said when he was on the Cannabis Project that he believed that skunk faded with the loss of lead in the
Ah,
gas. So you want to elaborate a little bit on that? I told
so
him I would
so
ask.
I was just throwing out like that was like a conjecture that we're constantly saying. People are saying like skunk is gone, right? But I mean, I pulled a nugget out and handed it to a fella tonight and said share that with everyone, and the whole fucking bar was just like thinking like a skunk all of a sudden. So it's not really gone, but we have what we think may have been it. But there's also we all know epigenetics happens, right? And we could talk to some of these master growers like Kevin Georgery who say like we run the same cut at sea level at 500 feet elevation to the top of the ridge, over the ridge in the dry zone. And it comes out different everywhere with the exact same soil, same water regime, whatever. That's epigenetics, right? So that's the effect of the environment within the package of genetics inside the plant's capacity. And so it'll adapt. And the same kind of adaptation that can occur, for instance, if you use in a sativa, a true land-raised sativa. I'm not talking about hybrids and people get jargon mixed up, but a true sativa from a land race, you grow it under a red light, it's going to stretch a lot more than if you grow it under a blue light. It's going to have a shorter internode. Okay, it's not going to etoliate or have that cell stretch. Um, if you feed certain things to it, it's going to change the flavor. If uh, an epigenetic response is any sort of nutrient over or under feeding and the leaf starts to change, right? Whether it's claws or changes color. These are all epigenetic changes, right? These are responses to the environment within the full genetic package, and it adapts and it has least limiting and most limiting factors that it has to abide by to get to its goal, which is reproduction, producing a seed. Um, so skunk smell being a phenol, it's a biscuit alcohol and ester. All right. So these things they evaporate at low temperatures. We can smell them in a room, right? So they're not going to be long in the bag, whatever. But whatever it is, it takes sulfur to produce that. Okay. So we know we put sulfur in, for instance, with gypsum. I know I'm giving sulfur to my plants, so that's part of why my plants got skunky smell. But in the overall scheme of things, we're getting back here. Back in the day, we used to have a lot more sulfur in our diesel, and we'd be spewing diesel everywhere and black fumes. And not only like where I grew up in Los Angeles, where you saw that in the basin, and it created visual pollution. But through dispersion through the wind currents of the world, that stuff would spread everywhere, right? So there was sulfur in the air everywhere. So plants could have been taking up through their stomata, or even as that stuff deposits into the soil, that sulfur deposition to create more of a skunky epigenetic expression of its terpene profile than we were able to get today. And I mentioned we don't have lead anymore in our gas like we used to. And those are just two things that have changed in our environment that are never going to come back on a large scale. And we don't really necessarily want them to come back. But it's like, so why do we all say skunk is gone? And like people, one guy says he spent over $40,000 buying people's seeds who say, I have the skunk. And he grows it and says, none of this shit's skunky, right? So there's like this huge question that I contemplate, and I don't know that's the answer. It'd be cool if we could figure out some way to do the science on that, but we don't have the baseline. We never tested back then. We never thought skunk was going to go away, right? So, but again, I think most of my stuff really has, when it's cured out, an amazing skunkiness to it when you get it isolated. Keep things around a bunch of other things, and it's like, I can smell some sharpness, I can smell some gas, I can smell. Heavy roller comes by one day, parks across the street, says, "Well, man, it's loud around here." Like I can hear it 3 houses down across the street. I give him a little tour, and we're hanging out looking at the weight, and he's like, I think you do something wrong with your curing. Like, no, man, you're in the heart of the loud. It's screaming so loud in here, you can't tell the difference between in front of your face and in front of the bag, right? So there's these relativities things that go on, but you take that little piece out and you get it into fresh air, and then it's just. That's how mine is. I don't know how everyone else is. I got to be a weed snob back there in the 80s. Yeah. Getting that stuff coming down from the triangle and comparing it to that maxi weed. And some of those guys that were producing some real good dank weed back in the day. It was, well, you take a hit and that's all you needed. That's what I like it to be like. Speaking of which, I'll take a hit, take a break.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a weed snob. I'm just jealous that, location, 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 you can't hate because you were there and able to get some of that good stuff way back in the day. I mean,
dude, there was mixed blessings, right? Like I said, I was talking the other day, I would get, whether we had weed or not, we'd just get pulled over by police walking home from school, right? All through the mid 80s. By the end of the 80s, it was depending on where you were. Yeah, location, downtown LA, where I went to private school. I'm blessed with my education. One night sitting there smoking joint in our Letterman jacket, drinking beers, and the cops roll up, LAPD, and like, man, you guys kicked ass in the game this week. You ought to get up onto the curb before some drunk rolls you over. Do good in the playoffs, right? We're 17, 18 years old passing a joint around, and the police pull up and congratulate us on our football game. But you get into some of the more affluent suburbia, and yeah, you were getting pulled over constantly. Stop walking, stop riding your bike, whatever. That's how it was when I got here. Scary as shit here, but it's a whole different. So back in the day on the fishing boat, we were boarded 5 days a week by Coast Guard. We had 3 shifts a day on the boats, and we couldn't throw seeds in the trash can or whatever, right? It was, but we needed that medicine for people. They got sick, and it made a huge difference. And a lot of the deckhands were strung out on coke. I actually almost got murdered at sea one night when I was 14. We had a record catch, and the captain says we're staying out an extra hour to secure this catch record, and it'll never be beaten. We were just loading the boat, and coming back home in high seas, and I'm scrubbing deck, and the deckhand slices his hand. We're going through some waves, right? And where I come to a stop, I'm blocking the light, and he looks down at the side of the boat and sees me standing there in the light, like, you, it's your fault. And the next thing I know, my head's back against the rail, and he's coming down with the fillet knife, and the other deckhand's grabbed him while he's halfway into the stroke. And there's a chum line full of fish behind us, and there are sharks and stuff, right? They've been splaying fish out and everything, and high seas, and at 1 a.m, and I would have been dead in seconds. And I never worked with those guys again on the Coke boat, and the captain put me on the boat where Big Ed and Jeff would come out. It was the weed boat. Yeah.
I'd rather be on the weed boat any day. Would
Oh
rather
man, it
be
was
on the
nuts.
weed boat any day.
Yeah. No, it was not cool. I saw some stuff that, like, I swore I would never do heroin because I seen these kids shooting up between their toes when I on one of these, like, there's all these boats at anchor, and kids would sneak into them and have them for party boats and stuff, right? So I seen that shit, and I seen, before I was 15, dudes doing crack cocaine and like robbing people for it and stuff. Those are friends, acquaintances. It's like, man, this is all bad juju. Here, smoke this, right? People getting drunk and doing stupid shit. I'm like, man, stop that. Smoke this. I was 15 when my mom came to me and says, hey, can you get cancer medicine? And back then it was just, we just knew smoking made it so you felt like a human being instead of wanting to die from the chemotherapy, right? And but I had to step off of the bus in downtown Los Angeles, going from the private school, and it was down in LA, and buy from basically cartel street dealers, because we did not have a steady state connection from like the chronic, which would have been way better for the lady. But that was the first thing I was able to get somebody for cancer medicine in 1986. It was a big bag of pressed weed sativa. I've never charged a cancer patient in my life. And I've helped out. My cancer medicine has gone like to India and saved a head of state in India a few years back. Changed their laws, Ayurvedic medicine, and their state medicine laws there.
It's pretty damn awesome right there. It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that was in conjunction with Seeds for Deeds out in California too. You know, we were a spinoff from the PFA where I was teaching. We had the Landrace Traders Club with the intent of getting medicine to people who need it and not charging them, and getting seeds preserved. The landrace, and the landrace has some medicine in it that we don't even know about yet, and scraggly plants that people don't want to grow because it doesn't grow much. And they figured that out with like the CBG, and it's like, oh, these scraggly little hemp plants with the CBD, like, breed it up into these massive plants and then produces huge amounts of both of those now. But there's other stuff we haven't found yet still. We know about terpene combinations and things, but I talked to a guy in China, and there's over 100 canyons that are like untouched and unresearched with wild cannabis growing in across the country in China, right? If not more than that. He said he'd visited some 25 places and collected in super remote 3-day hike in to get the seeds type of stuff. So we have no idea what this plant holds for us still. Pretty glad that I've learned and keep learning. So it's as a kid, I had these injuries, right, playing football. And apparently I broke my neck when I was 16. Wasn't recognized. I was extremely strong. I could squat 750 pounds. They called me Odysseus. And I think I passed out. Was out cold for maybe 10 to 20 seconds. But I got up and ran off the football field and ran right to the doctor. He was a friend of mine. My sister babysat for his family, big Catholic family, 9 kids. And he examined me and says, man, you got whiplash. And raining that night, it's kind of cold, and it started tensing up. 10 minutes later, I'm like, doc, something's wrong. It's getting worse. And he gave me a towel and like, you got really bad whiplash. And wrapped up a towel and held it there, and just come by the shop on Monday, and I'll give you some pills and a brace. And So I got pills and a brace, and then like 2 months later, I'm still wearing this brace and eating pills. And one of the priests, it might have just been a month later, whatever it was, but I could have gotten more pills. But I was just out there, and I'd be in class, and they're like, "When you coming back to class, Alex?" I'm like, "I'm here." Like, no, when? And it literally takes the pills from me and throws them away and makes me take the neck brace off because I was just, it probably saved my life and probably saved a lot of people's lives since then because the ripples in the pool spread and you throw it reverberates and I've done some amazing things since then. But yeah, I probably would have been a pillhead drug addict for the rest of my life, addicted to those things if he didn't do that for me. I never played football again though. My neck was obviously, I thought I was like, I put the helmet on. I'm like, oh, I'm going to break my neck if I play. It's too weak. I had no idea it had actually broken. I found out years later. Um, but smoking a little grass make you feel good. And I was down in Mexico with my cousin who had a orphanage, and these guys next to me from Texas had a little puff. They were having a session, and I'm like, oh man, it'd be huge. You guys could help me out, man. You know, and they're like, well, don't tell anybody if you get busted. I'm like, busted? Who's what? Next thing I know, though, I'm stuffing a little weed in the front of my cigarette, and I look up. There's 12 federales with machine guns just on me, and like, uh, that was that was crazy. That was like a 4 or 5 hour ordeal, and they were taking me and my mom's vehicle that I drove down there, and all the orphan stuff that was in it, the van again. And my cousin shows up, speaks fluent Spanish, says, no, let's go for a drive with the Capitan. So I had machine guns in my ribs. We drove around Ensenadas, Mexico, and negotiated. The captain wanted the cassette tape with the mariachi band that my cousin loved to listen to. So he held that mariachi band cassette tape as the bargaining chip. And he didn't ever give it up. But they kept my driver's license and like $260 cash. And so I had a bunch of guys with my name working in fields in Michigan the next year. And my cousin got my Grateful Dead tickets for the Grateful Dead and Dylan that year. And I had one of the craziest experiences you'd ever want to like I remember watching the Midnight Express, I think it is, when the guy gets busted for hash in somewhere in the Middle East, in the 60s. And that is some scary shit. And I was like, Mexico jail is no cakewalk of any sort whatsoever, right? The prisons there, some of them like are walls with barbed wire on top, but no ceiling. And they don't have food. So you got to know somebody to get any food. And there's no toilet, it's dirt. And if it rains, it rains, right? So I thought I was going there. Some crazy shit.
It's
Half a gram.
oh shit.
Right?
It's pretty harsh conditions for a half gram.
Right? Oh, no shit. No shit. I mean, any jail is pretty harsh conditions for anything. You know, you're racketeering and rolling millions. It's a whole different story. Don't be greedy, right? No one needs to be greedy like that. But pay your taxes and stuff, at least. But yeah, no, personal medicine. I've actually been incarcerated by all 3 federal governments in North America for personal medicine. The border of Canada, Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 2001 for suspicion. Never found anything. And twice by American federal officers. Once in Yosemite for less than half an ounce, and then in my dorm room in college, I had a bowl and they found a 10 strip. So I was arrested for attempted manslaughter of a police officer because he barehanded a 10 strip. Yeah. But so where does that put me? You know, these are all kind of like these crazy blessings. It was like I was scared to death to run or grow. But I was growing my own. I was growing for some landowners that I ran their property, just a few plants in their forest groves and stuff. And I started like experimenting with like micro closets, and the other was guerrilla dry farming that I got to experiment with, right? And I could go out, and it wasn't like a production system. I didn't have a lot invested in it. It was, I go hiking all the fucking time, and that's what I do. I hike a lot. I always have. I love to hike. We used to go out and spend weekends with just a knife and a lighter and a wool blanket in the San Gabriel Mountains and camp out and stuff, right? I love nature. Um, and so I'd be out hiking and stuff, and I'd just look at how plants grow, and I'm studying forestry and fire management and how the earth works, and um, I'd start taking rooted plants out, clones, and seeing if they grow and how much water they take or how much water they didn't take. Or eventually, I started Johnny seeding. And I Johnny seeded for like 25 years before I really figured it out. But I can dry farm now, and I can teach anybody how to dry farm now. I've got my first student in California who's going on her second year of dry farming, and just using what rain comes and planting from seed. And it has to do with timing and understanding nature and the cycles in your area and stuff. And yeah, it's again part of my blessings. I got to go to college. You know, I was like in this prep school, and they're like, "Where are you going to go to college for?" I'm like, "Man, I don't want to go to college. I want to go to college for? I want a suit job. Fuck suit jobs." I grew up with the richest people in the world's kids. Nobody's any better for having money, right? And I saw this, and some people were a lot fucking worse for it, right? And I'm not saying everybody with money's bad. There's some amazing people who have money, and they become even more amazing when they have money. They can do some fucking awesome shit for other people, right? And they can change the world for the better. But most people just put it in the hole and hoard it and do fun stuff for themselves. It is what it is. It's money. So, but I had a bad taste in my mouth for it and never really was chasing it. Um, I brain farted. Let's see. Education, college. And so I'm studying forestry. So yeah, they asked me like, "What are you going to study?" I'm like, "I just want to live in the woods. I just want to go live in, like, how are you going to live in the woods?" I'm like, "Well, I guess I'll be a ranger." Like, you got to have a master's degree to be a ranger. Like, I guess I'm going to college then. And it made sense. My brother was studying forestry fire management, and I was like, that they can get into Cal Poly, and it was really hard to get into Cal Poly. Got there, and amazing environment to learn and study and do things that. For instance, we had a soil science teacher or group of teachers who weren't just soil science teachers. They were the guys who developed the first two-part hydroponic system for NASA, right? So like, I want to learn how to grow food. These guys are like the masters of understanding how food grows. They figured out how to make hydroponics, right? And so my brother studied underneath them, and he ended up growing some pretty good weed. But I really wanted to know about nature. I really wanted to know about how plants grow and how to grow the best weed I possibly could. And through studying forestry, fire management, and fire science and ecology, I got to learn so much about soils, about biology, plants, animal interactions, how nutrients are distributed throughout the landscape, nature, um, what happens when landscapes start new, progression. And we do things like take a horse shit and put it in a Dixie cup and study it under a microscope for 3 fucking months, right? It's like soil science stuff. Like what plant, what fungi, what bacteria, what virus comes in and eats the next one, and we were studying all of that shit. And you really, really understand how things grow. And at the same time, I'm working for this landowner who was the lady was an herbalist, and she's teaching me sacred medicine herbalism stuff and how to hang your tea herbs and stuff, and what herbs heal you for this or that. And um, went on a group went on a trip with my brother one time to the Grand Canyon and to the Havasupai Indian Reservation. Drove from LA to the Grand Canyon in the back of a pickup truck and back. And that was with some drunk potheads. But I went again in college with best friend. Dude just sent me email telling me his home is going to be an all organic farm with ecotourism on it in Montana. best friend of mine, and he's been working on this for years, but now all of a sudden he's like, everything's changed, and now I'm putting a greenhouse on the property. So yeah, we're in the Grand Canyon, and we meet the medicine man down there, and I got to talk to the medicine man for 3 hours without saying a word one day, and they ended up introducing me to their sweat lodge. I'd been in a sweat lodge before, but they wanted me to teach them about this cannabis butter I developed for. I couldn't smoke when I was doing triathlons, and they ate some and disappeared for 2 days from their work site. And everybody's in the village is like, they said they're coming to visit you. Where are they? They ate the green butter. I don't know. So yeah, these guys brought me into the sweat lodge, and we were speaking in tongues. They were speaking their language, and I understood it. And conversing with them, they were asking me how to make this green butter. And I actually was doing a cold process I developed back in early '90s. But they had a spiritual experience and a sacred experience. This guy is, I met him, and he was, I don't know how to describe communing with Mescalito, right? He was riding the white horse. And I was 7 grams of dried into it when we met each other. I got actually a painting I've done of. I'm going to do another one where it's just the two of us standing talking in front of this waterfall in the Grand Canyon. Kind of cool. Yeah, but everywhere I went, I'd meet these Native American folks, and they'd teach me the secrets of their sacred rites and stuff, and little things about. No, they wouldn't tell me everything, but firefighting, I'd meet folks and they'd teach me stuff. And my mom sent me my first sweat lodge when I was 18 years old at the Catholic school. Coming out of there, I was almost like, I might go in the seminary and become a Jesuit priest. And prior to that, they were pretty adamant that I was going to go in the military and be special forces. Actually, at the age of 15, I went to special recruitment in what was it? Detection and recruitment and training program called Devil Pups, and the ROTC kids would go through it, whatever. But it so happens my grandfather started it, and so I went through it, and they gave me a C pass to come back as special forces as a recon ranger, but I was already conscious, and says no, I object. Priesthood didn't sound bad, but when my mom sent me on this hike with these natives in Yosemite, and I did my first sweat lodge on right above the ridge of Bloody Canyon, we had I had more mysticism and spirituality in 4 hours in that sweat lodge than I had in 4 years of Jesuit college preparatory. And I ate lunch with the priests every day. These guys all had multiple doctorates and stuff, and we'd have these amazing conversations and talk about the future and the past and what is. But in the sweat lodge, there had been a slaughter in 1860s when the white guys came in, and the Mariposa Brigade formed up, and it was kind of a vigilante brigade or a militia that went in and chased down the last wild Indians in California, were the Awanichi in the Yosemite Valley. And they chased them like 3 years in a row, and they finally caught up with them, what is now known as Bloody Canyon. And we were pretty close to there where we were camped and set up our sweat lodge. 3 of the entities, spirits of the slain warriors, came into the sweat lodge with us. And one of them, how else do you put it, possessed this medicine man and started singing ancient songs in tongues that all these natives were in. I was one of 5 white people and 30 in the sweat lodge, and so these people knew their language, and they're like, no, these are all old songs. This is, our language evolved, and this is something I don't understand. And but they did a full round of 4 songs. The ground was shaking as he would thump his foot into the ground, and everyone experienced it. There was glowing orbs over the rock, the heat source, right? But these things were green. They weren't red like the rocks or whatever. So I've had these amazing experiences, spirituality, the sacred earth, sacred planet. And that's in the sweat lodges. I've never peyote. I do have mescaline cactus I grow, that I still haven't had a proper state of mind in place since I started growing those 3 or 4 years ago to even bother boiling it down and using it. As a teacher, I work more with little smoke, the mushroom. For, um, I
So
also
I
use other.
can't.
Go ahead.
I hate to interrupt, but
No,
I've been dying to ask you what
yeah,
was the message that you received from the medicine man? What was your message from the medicine man?
man. So they were. So which was the one in the sweat lodge the first time when he was possessed,
The
or when
one
I
where
was in the Grand Canyon?
you had the conversation basically without words, because this I kind of went
Oh,
in last
oh,
night. This is
yeah,
where
yeah.
I kind of went in last night.
That I almost want to go. I almost want to go walk down and show you the painting. Um, you awake, Sadie? Can you go grab that pastel for me? You know what I'm talking about? Trying to get my daughter to help. That's not happening. So yeah, I'll do this. Let's see. We'll take a little walk real quick here. Um, so we, when you can't talk, right? But you can converse. You've been there. It's a whole nother reality, space, time, place. Let's see. I think, can you see? Does it come
Can see.
across? Do I need more
Yeah.
light or is this working?
Oh no, it's working. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, well, what's going on here is when I first went there, that whole area we're standing in was a big old pond of water, actually. And a huge flood had come through. And a dam had broken up, canyon, and wiped out a huge portion of the village and these tourist attractions of these beautiful pools that were made of travertine. And so to him and his people, that waterfall is a spiritual God entity, right? And he was in prayer, deep meditation with if we want to call it, the idol of this waterfall in situation, right? So he was doing a deep contemplation as to, so the water features of the Havasupai, the valley of the blue-green water, the people of the blue-green water, the Havasupai. Um, he their entire income was derived from, they were corn farmers. They grow corn in the valley and that's what they eat, right? And pumpkins and beans, okay? But anything else comes from tourist dollars. And the tourist attraction just washed away. It was these beautiful pools that were 20 feet deep, this azure blue-green water, okay? And these white to red travertine pools that built up over thousands of years of this mineralized water slowly trickling over sticks and building up this beautiful stonework that makes these ponds and would cascade. And there was campgrounds strewn through there, and like it's like a 2-year waiting list to get down there anymore. And now you can fly in on a helicopter for the day. But back in the day, it was you walked or you rode horses, and it's 12 miles from the nearest road, and it's 60 miles, and you couldn't get in except for waiting list, right? Back 20, 30 years ago, even. So it's a really popular spot. Their entire income for the village was destroyed by this flood. So he's in deep meditation. How do we fix this? He's asking the waterfall. He's saying he's in prayer with the universe. He's reaching into the Akashic record, is how we can say it in our language, right? He's going into the multiverse to look at what's the future that we need to create to sustain ourselves and be able to stay here as a village and not have to go back out of this canyon and live as in the white man's world, right? Because they literally would have perished. They couldn't figure it out. And the solution that they came up with, though, was that they had built riffraff, put rock into metal caging, and let the mineral build up around that and deepen the pool that way. So, but that's what we were in this deep contemplation when we integrated our mind, is to find a solution, is to recreate that canyon and make it as beautiful as it was before the flood, and an income source. Yeah, that's kind of a weird little, but that's what it was. Yeah. I have not been back there since myself. My buddy who I was with on that trip did make it back there since then, and but you see pictures of it. You see it. It's on the Instagram. It's I've done a couple of beautiful paintings of it. Man, I'll tell you, here's a great story from down there, and there's a bunch of them, but there's a couple of waterfalls, and the upper falls is the Supai Falls, and the lower one's called Mooney Falls. The Mooney Falls is like 360 feet. It's fucking amazing, right? And these deep blue pools and red rock around it. And it's crazy because the animals have like adapted to the color scheme down there. They'll have like red and blue fur or feather or scale scheme at their reptile. And there's an outhouse over the top, about 80 yards above the top of the tall waterfall. And the outhouse's door is stuck open. And you're looking out into the Grand Canyon doing your business. One of the most beautiful freaking views I've ever sat on a throne. Well, I'm doing my business, and I noticed this man walking by with this kid. And it wasn't just walking by with his kid, but he was carrying this kid, and his kid was a full-grown man who had no motor capacity. He was basically a skin and bones skeleton in a mind, right? And his dad carried him down this. They only take the horses so far, the 12 miles, and then it's another 3 miles down to these waterfalls. His dad carried his son down to see this stuff. And that was one of my first times I ever saw true love, unconditional, like, I love you, and I'm gonna experience you, the greatest things on this earth. And this guy's carrying his, and it's weight, it's dead weight, literally. And I mean, juxtaposed to the meal ticket in Buster Scruggs, the guy with no arms and no legs who speaks so eloquently, and the guy ends up like buying a chicken and leaving the guy by the side of the road in a snowstorm to die. What is humanity, and why do we care? What makes the difference between a human? They said that empathy was the thing back in the day that says this is the difference between an animal and a human, was when they found somebody whose leg had been mended, and that meant that somebody had a broken leg, somebody else had to take care of them and feed them, right? So empathy happened, right? So here we are, and that's the biggest thing as a human being, and being a spiritual being, to me, is like not causing suffering to anybody else, and if we're not alleviating other people's suffering, right? What is, to me, in all my contemplations and deep meditations, and I've done some that have run 20 years plus, what is the meaning of life? We all ask that question, right? And the best thing I can come back to is to be as happy as possible at all times without infringing on the happiness of anybody else. And so where does that come back to? Like, when we eat food, are we eating food that was created through pollution processes, or are we eating food that were created through regenerative processes that makes the earth a more diverse and strong entity in itself, right? Somebody was asking about the desert pupfish the other day, right? And they're responding to a doctor who spent his whole life studying the desert pupfish, being asked, like, what good is it? What does it matter if we lose the desert pupfish? And the doctor's response to people who ask that was, like, what good are you? What does it matter if we lose you? What good have you done for the rest of the world, right? So all of this comes around. It's like, back there at the age of 15, going to that Jesuit public or Catholic all boys prep school, and somebody showed up with Jack Herrera's book, Emperor Wears No Clothes or New Clothes, whatever it is. But it talks all about hemp back in the day, and I had no idea. We'd just been harangued and harassed and beaten by cops for having some grass for as long as I can remember. And I had cousins that were Pakalolo Grower Association in Hawaii in the 70s. I had, you know, it'd been around before I smoked. It was part of the family, and but that was the other side of the family from the grandma I was living with. And I went and asked her, and I learned about this and this Jack Herrera's book and hemp and stuff, and how the yellow journalism happened. And says, "Grandma, did you have hemp growing on the farm when you were a little girl? Did great grandpa grow hemp?" And she gets a twinkle in her eye, and she goes back into her room and into her cedar hope chest and pulls out this brown paper parafletch, and she unfolds it and unties it and hands me this beautiful silk hemp vest. And it's fancy, woven like a Irish sweater, right? The knot work in an Irish sweater, all stitched in the or woven into the front, and then there was fine embroidery that was bright as day along the collars and stuff. And I, amazingly beautiful. It's like, this is from the old country, which had to have been before like 1917. And here we are in 87, 86, 87, and was like, this is amazing. So I find out then that, like, yeah, my ancestors were hemp farmers, and literally my dad is the only generation that didn't grow cannabis in all of my ancestral history that I know of. So my grandmother, I went and laid her to rest in the family village in North Dakota, and found the old family cross, the Iron Cross from. So they were Austrians who went to be military officers and farmers in um, Belarus for the Tsar and the White Army. And then when the Bolsheviks came through, they kind of split. The Reds afterwards. But yeah, so my great great grandfather was actually murdered by Bolsheviks in North Dakota, and my family established their HARTI gravestones and iron crosses are all still there right next to the anglicized HARDY, which during the Depression, my great uncles were trying to get a job, and they had to whiten up even more, even though we were as white as you can get. They were immigrants with a strange sounding name, so they changed it to DY when somebody was calling out for this particular name, same name, different spelling. The people who had signed up for the job list didn't show up, so they jumped on the truck and took the job, and that changed our name to HRDY. Yeah. So, but anyhow, back in the day, there you start learning about the hemp, and it's like, wow, okay, let's change the world. Let's get back to hemp instead of petroleum wars and stuff. We already knew we were in petroleum wars and fighting for oil back then, in the late 80s, and pollution and global warming. I knew about global warming. The priest told me about it in the mid 80s. You may or may not understand it or believe it. Belief and understanding are two different things. Beliefs are things that you don't have an understanding of or proof. And understanding is like, hey, I got proof of this. This is all the information. I understand the information. This is how this works. So they gave me an understanding of that way back when. The oil companies had an understanding of it in the 70s. I can't see any different. It doesn't snow here like it used to, that's for sure. I like to make it a better place for seventh generation after me, right? And I'm the seventh generation from the people who came before me here to America. My daughter is the daughter of the American Revolution, and we all know like things like alcohol ain't that great for us. Cannabis doesn't. And those are all things like we observed this, but fuck, they threw us in jail for smoking weed. But I persisted and persisted with my own gig. My brother, and we set out to start smoking or breeding skunk. He ended up getting a hold of a bunch of Hindu Kush seeds in the early 90s, selecting them out and getting a system set up with houses and producing pretty large quantities, and was Snoop Dogg's first contract grower in the early 90s. And so he had this Hindu Kush that he selected that was as skunky gets. He grew it all with that 2-part formula from General Hydroponics. And I was all about organic. And he had left forestry and got into biochemistry. He ended up getting masters in zemology and biochem. And we would get in these arguments over organic or plant doesn't care how it gets its nutrients. And as long as it gets its nutrients. And I'll tell you what, he grew some stanky, danky, sticky, icky. And I've heard people talk about it who smoked it back in the day, and they didn't know it was him. They just knew where it came from, said the location, and described it. I'm like, yep, that was my brother's stuff, and it was all 2-part. And these guys are hardcore microbial dudes in California who have massive business selling microbes, and they're saying the best weed I ever smoked in the world was my brother's 2-part hydro grow, right? And back in the 90s. And it's like, what is skunk? And they're describing it as this crazy skunky stuff, and we're all trying to strive for that with our full soils, right? What the fuck is that skunk? Anyhow, my brother ended up having several houses, and crazy shit happened, and kid ended up dying at the clone house from an OD of heroin, and that shut that all down pretty much. But eventually I ran into out here after I bought my house, some guy who worked with him showed up as one of his proteges, and I worked with him here for a little bit, and he ended up leaving me with the clone of that original cut, the Hindu Kush my brother selected. And I was growing that for a while. And so I out of college ended up getting a job as a federal officer in Los Angeles, of all things. Right?
Really?
Like a tree cop for the
That
Forest
one
Service.
shocked me. What?
Yeah, no, I was a tree cop for the Forest Service.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, right.
That makes me feel a little better. It makes me feel a little better. I can see that. I can see that.
But I was a federal officer. No, I wasn't a tax man. No, I wasn't. I literally had a beat, and we drove around and made sure. Primarily, it was people were paying for the new fee program, but we opened up places that had been locked up because the logging had been shut down due to the owl debacle, and there was no funding for the Forest Service anymore. So they ended up. But my heart was in firefighting, really, and the state of Utah found me and offered me a job running the inmate fire crew for the state. And I'm like, hell yeah, I always want my own crew. And I come out and started running the inmate fire crew. And we passed medical in California in '96, and I figured it was all good there. I didn't have to deal with figuring that stuff out for people anymore, even though that had been a mission of mine for so long. It's like, man, firefighting is so fucking fun. Talking about a thrill sport, you can't. Like, I get to rappel out of helicopters into burning forests, 270 feet down a rope, right? I mean, give me a shot of adrenaline. And then they let us sleep out at night and squirt hoses and roll in the mud and play with matches, and sometimes they have to light the whole side of the mountain on fire to backfire and stuff. You can't pay to go have that kind of fun. It doesn't pay very well to go have that kind of fun, but like, I was doing good. I enjoyed it. It was great, but I didn't know my neck had been broken playing football, and so like my hands fucking always hurt. I had issues, and they told me it was carpal tunnel, so I just kept getting more and more injuries, thinking it was nothing. And the cannabis was still the only thing that helped me. I wrote a book about firefighting. It tells all about my experience with these inmates, or of a huge part of it. It was pretty crazy. I talk about treating people like human beings, and everybody's equal, and equal rights and justice. And it's partly why I don't even ask you when somebody says they need cancer medicine. Like, I never charge for it. Like, you deserve to live, and then I know God is within this plant because it will kill the cancer within you if you consume this, right? And you will live, and you will have life within you still. And God is whatever. That's a huge discussion. What is God, right? Just a thought and a vibration, or is it some dude on a throne with a beard, right? With the vibration, but yeah. So here I am in Utah with this job running the inmate crew, and I'm puffing on my own time to deal with my spinal injuries, and have this great rapport with the inmates because I treat them like human beings, and I want to be my firefighter crew and not a bunch of inmates, right? And I'm teaching them woodcraft, and I'm teaching them forestry, and I would do like ropes course exercises with them to get them to work as a team. And the correction officers hated it. They hated that whenever we'd be out firefighting, I'd meet some Native Americans. They teach me about their sacred rights. And, you know, the correction officer like, I've been asking about that stuff for 20 years. I'm like, I didn't ask. I'm not you, right? I'm me. And we had, for instance, a black Muslim on the crew, and he lost his religious gold necklace. And the belief was that it got thrown in the garbage and hauled off 30 miles. Well, I drove him there to go dig through the fucking dumpster to find his necklace, because it's his right. It's his religious freedom, and it wasn't hurting anybody for us to do that, right? The next thing that comes along is we got a bunch of Native Americans on the crew, and they're fighting for their right to sweat lodge. And I've been sweating since I was 18, and I said, yeah, I think you guys should be able to, and I'll provide the firewood. And so I started bringing firewood for them. But at the same time, the correction officer is like, you're giving weed to the inmate, and like, no, not doing that. And but it came around to where like I couldn't work with the inmates anymore. I didn't get fired. I told them straight up I smoke weed, but I'm not going to piss test because I ain't doing it on the job. The boss doesn't think so. The contract that I signed with the state set up here says that unless the boss says he thinks I'm using it and it's detrimental to my job, I don't got to pee. You think I'm using it? And he says, no, I ain't peeing. And they're like, whatever, you ain't working with the inmates anymore. So I split. And at the same freaking time I lose the job, my girlfriend, who I was ready to marry, ends up like going cold turkey on her fucking meds for anxiety and depression or whatever it was. I'm not exactly sure, but we all know somebody who went cold turkey on their meds and went suicidal. And this stuff cannabis replaces all those meds. We know that now. Had I known it then, she wouldn't have been dead. But she freaking the next day, we made love all day Christmas, and 2 days later, she freaking took a long gun to her heart, blew her heart out. Right? Kind of devastated me, you say the least. I drank a lot of that, brother. Yeah. Hey, 20 years ago, and it sucks, but it's like I've been able to tell these stories to help other people, right? Like I've lived through this shit, and it's hard. It ain't fucking easy. And it's affected my relationships and stuff. But you know, had she had access to cannabis and medical marijuana, right? That shit never would have happened. The strains that we have now that we've bred out and we've isolated, we now know like through allegorical, anecdotal, and they're figuring this shit out. This strain helps 90% of people with that. This strain helps that, right? And yeah, it sucks Laura's gone. But you know, things happen. So things that happened after that though was the next year ran into the inmates firefighting again after I didn't work with them no more. I was working with a helicopter, and we got stuck on top of a mountain. Me and 13 of these guys I had worked with for 2 years, and they started asking me how it's going. And I was hurting from both losing the job out of college that I thought I had gone to college for, running the inmate crew, and Laura killing herself. And these guys, they full circled me on being a human being. It was fucking awesome. One of them's like, dude, when I met you, I'd never had a job in my life, and now I have a work ethic. Next one says, when I met you, I weighed 350 pounds. Now I'm a lean, mean, 180-pound working machine. And another guy says, man, no one ever gave me respect in my life before I met you, and now I have self-respect. And 13 of these guys went around the circle and all told me how I made their life a better life because I treated them as human beings, right? And it's just all part of why I do what I do. I got some privilege and I'm going to exercise it. And so treating those Native Americans as human beings and giving them their firewood for their sweat lodges. Unbeknownst to me, there was also a white guy in jail with him fighting for his right. He'd grown up on a Native American reservation, third generation, and had been sweating his whole life. His dad had been sweating his whole life, and his grandparents would sweat. And this is crazy. It gets pretty intertwined here. Oh, go ahead. Ask.
When you talk sweating, are you talking about like going into like a sauna and like, you know, taking yourself to basically a point of dehydration to where you know, you put yourself into that hallucinogen state? Your body's
Man,
kind of in that panic mode, and you start to slip into where you've
I don't
opened your
know.
mind up.
I don't know that it's exactly the same thing as sauna. There's different things going on when you're in a sweat lodge. You've got now. I do have a sauna here that I use, and I call it my urban sweat lodge, but it's not the same thing at all. They can get really fucking hot in the sweat lodge, and you can do a hot, moist heat. But you've got fresh sage brush, so you don't burn yourself. You literally, it's so hot in there, you will scald. Okay, so yes and no. Okay, here in Utah, there's a white guy who killed people doing sweat lodges that weren't proper. Okay, there's another guy who baked people to death and put them into a mud clay enclosure. Okay, so it's not just you're not just heating yourself up and going into this delirious state. That's not what it's happening any more than I think. Like, for instance, if you consider going to a Grateful Dead concert and dancing for 6 hours, a religious experience or an ecstatic experience, right? It's kind of like that. You don't have to take hallucinogen to do that. I can also fight fire. We used to fight fire 24-hour shifts, nonstop. Okay, triathlon, Huradura distance runners. Okay, you have the do you know about the Huradura distance runners? These guys are run.
No, I don't.
Oh yeah, so they run like 240 miles. These guys, and it's a religious experience in Mexico. It's a tribe, and they're peyote eaters, but they're not eating peyote for this. They run as a prayer, and they'll run, and they run barefoot, and they run through the desert, and
Shit.
in high mountains and shit. Yeah, no, these check out the Huradora tribe in Mexico, right? There's a group of people in I believe it's an Orthodox Russian group that they spin. Okay, they get in this ecstatic spinning, and they can spin for days where they're just spinning nonstop, and it's a religious experience. And yes, you transcend. You definitely leave what we would call normal reality. You leave your standard state of consciousness. You're in there. You're breathing. You have to breathe. It's hot, so you can't really breathe without breathing through or think of sage brush over your face. Okay, and they're throwing sage, so you're getting the smoke burning. They're throwing sage on there. You're sweating, and you're singing prayer songs. The prayer songs have meaning and focus, right? And so you're meditating on these thoughts of meaning and focus. Like any meditation, you're going into these different levels of your mind's capacity. So with or without drugs, we can put ourselves into flow state, right? You know, like athletes do. So as an extreme skier, that's something I would do. Is I would approach what would make people cry or throw up or shake their knees because it's so fucking death-defying and scary of a cliff covered with snow. I'd skip to it backwards and jump into it backwards because I'm at that point completely one with the universe and in the flow state. I've attained one with. Okay, so there's all sorts of ways of getting there. I used to get there body surfing, and some of the craziest stuff is when you're body surfing with a friend and you're flowing, and all of a sudden you're like you guys are like a couple of dolphins, and you're in flow, right? And then I didn't know what it was when I was a kid. Artists go into it, and there's ways to put yourself there through meditation, through exercises, through shock state. So in the sweat lodge, you're going into this ecstatic state of deep meditation and prayer. There is a lot of heat involved. The Native American church ceremony involves peyote, right? And so you're going into a whole nother level where you're hallucinating, you're communing
Getting
with the
deep
spirit.
at that point.
Yeah. So like I've only ever consumed cannabis with the sweat lodge or nothing at all, and you still get into these amazing states of whether you want to call it a deep meditative state or
So
however
I
you're
can't
putting it.
help but wonder, sage is used, in a lot of practices to keep ward away spirits. So
Yes.
is there something significant about breathing in? Are you like filtering out
Well,
like a
so
bad presence when
it's
you breathe in through the sage?
the latent heat of evapotranspiration is pretty much I think what's happening. Um, 1 kilocalorie per cc of water raised 1 calorie Celsius or 1 degree Celsius. It's the latent heat. So water feels cold because it evaporates, right? When you sweat, you cool because it's evaporating. That's the latent heat of evaporation. So that's like there's moisture inside that, and so you're breathing through hot air through it, and it's bringing a little bit of moisture off it and it cools the air. Um, so when you're in this super hot environment, the superheated environment, the smallest amount of molecular activity changes can be huge. I one time was burned over by a forest fire with 80-foot flames for 9 minutes with no shelter. And had I breathed a full breath of air, I would have cooked the inside of my lungs and not walked away from there. I was puffing air in and out, and I dug a shallow, maybe 2 inches into the ground, into the hard ground where my face was to get that much of a declivity to have the cool, cold air goes down, right? It's heavier, hot goes up. And so whatever coolness could possibly from the 600 to 1200 degree air around me was pulling in to where it was only 120, 200 degrees of dry air by my mouth. And then I take that in my mouth and cool it, and then kind of try and inhale it and puff a little bit out. Mostly I just wasn't breathing. But so yeah, molecular activity changes, and so a little bit of sage there makes a huge difference. The guys up front are more adapted to it. People in the back are the newbies. Still freaking hot in one of those. That first one I went in where I saw the entities, they had 24 skull-sized stones that had been cooked in a fire overnight and were glowing red hot when we brought them in there. And 30 people crammed into a willow-framed, tarpaulin-covered space. And then they throw a little water on there. They throw some sage on there, and you're cooking. It's pretty intense. But you're generally you sing the way it works. You go in, and there's a lot of ritual into um, how you go in and how you set everything up, and it all has to do with intention, right? And a lot of like when we grow our weed and we want to grow good weed, we got to grow it with intention to come out with a good product, right? So the same thing with setting up these prayer lodges. Um, you go, you do 4 rounds. So you're not in there generally the whole time. You can come on out and cool off in between sessions, right? And they can be a half hour to an hour each session. And it's yeah, it's a sweat lodge, and people have communal talking going on in there. You have discussion about what's going on in your life. You have all these things. It's prayer meeting. I don't know how else to put it to describe it in white man's terms. People who are used to going to Christian Sunday church, right? But it's totally different. It ain't the same thing, and you can't use the same terms, right? That first one we went to, crazy. Like there was a chunk of granite, and this is how they found the spot to camp at. They've been doing this prayer hike going up and over the Sierras from where the tribes lived, and they would take the ancient trade goods, just a symbolic walk, and do these sweat lodges, and somehow I got to connect with them, and oh, another brain fart. Well, anyhow, let's get back to where I was with. Instead of back in Yosemite, I was here in Utah, and we were getting these. I had to leave the fire crew, but I had provided the firewood for these guys, and the white guy was sweating. The natives were sweating. They got their right to sweat lodge. This actually went to the federal courts here in Utah, and they got their right. But I didn't know. I was gone. I had gone off to go fight fire other places, and then come back here to ski in the winter. And it ended up being a ruling in the circuit court, Supreme Court, and then the act of Congress got passed in the year 2000, and it's the, let's see, Incarcerated Peoples and Native Lands Repatriation Act of 2000. And essentially it said that, yes, everyone in prison is entitled to their First Amendment rights. Native Americans are allowed to have their sweat lodge. They can't have peyote in jail. The Christians can't have wine, they can have juice. Okay. So these guys could have their sweat lodge. But the other thing it said was that white people who are sincere in their beliefs about sacred earth, sacred plants, and the entheogenic properties of plants, which means God within. Okay, it's usually associated with what we call hallucinogens, mushrooms, peyote, cactuses, the vines, ayahuasca, DMT. These things would be considered the more commonly understood as what we would call an entheogen, plant with God within. For me, cannabis is an entheogen. Actually, for me, all plants are. And I don't consider myself a Native American. I don't consider myself one of these Native American church people, nor even the Moonies, who was the lawsuit that I was providing the firewood for. And so we have here in Utah, there's a couple of different factions of the Oklahoma Native American Church. And there's different levels of which people participate in using plant medicine and that. For me, all plants are sacred, and it goes more back to my Druidic roots and my Celtic roots. And it's kind of hard to really run the progression. I mean, Roman Catholic Church displaced my ancestors and beliefs and brought it back to me. And it's kind of crazy because there I was at Catholic school with the priest telling me, like, God comes to us each differently. Okay, relativity. One of the first revelations I was given when I first communed was speaking to God or the higher power or the Akashic, the realm of all knowing in the universe, is that any one person that says they have the right way, the one way, the one and only way, does not. And it took me a long time to figure it out, but relativity, E equals MC squared. We've all come to this point in where we are here and now with a whole different set of circumstances, right? Behind me, there's an oil painting. Let's see here. Right? No two people can stand and look at any of my oil paintings and see the same thing, right? Because not only you're standing side by side, and you have a different perspective of it there, but you've all come to that same place through a whole different set of experiences. So while some person might focus on the young woman, somebody else might see the mushrooms. Let's see, yeah, and somebody else might focus on the fruit, right? But even focusing on the fruit, it might be that somebody sees it being more red than someone else sees it more yellow. Okay, we can't see the same thing because we've had all these different experiences, and what attracts our eye and our mind's focus and stuff is not going to be the same thing. But for me, I believe that all plants are sacred. I had a arborist service. It was called Tree Love. Okay, because I love trees more than I love most people. Most people don't care about trees. right? I wish I could love all people, and I think as individuals we're all freaking awesome, but we've been manipulated by these different sets of experiences and information, right? That sets us to not see. The flat earther sees the earth as flat, and there's nothing I can do as somebody who's worked with satellites making maps, right, as well as hand surveying, that I can do to convince somebody that the earth has curvature, right? It's in their mind, they believe it's flat. Your mind creates reality. Our thoughts create our reality, right? And so everything that creates our thoughts is not going to be the same thing as anyone else's. And so our realities are all completely different. It's a pretty heavy thought process, but yeah, here we are. So it also happens with cannabis. Do we, anyone says they have the one way to grow cannabis? They don't. There's a whole bunch of ways, and you go through all these different things and what's going to work for your system, right? Which cannabis, for the longest time, everyone says, man, I grow the best weed in the world, right? And you know what? They do for them. They have their set of ailments. They have their set of chemistry, and they found a strain that works for them, and they found a harvest point that works for them, and they hand it to their friends, and they say, man, what the fuck, this sucks, man, I don't want to talk shit to you about your weed, but it's not the best in the world, and you're going, man, my weed's the best, and it is for you because it satisfies what you need it to, right? And that was a hard thing for me to start teaching to people, to get them to understand, because I used to swing it. And one day I handed mine to somebody, and now and it wasn't me saying I grow the best. Everyone who smoked it said that. And one guy says, "Don't you have something that like is less couch locky that picks me up because I can't smoke that. That'll put me to sleep." It's yeah. Let's see. So yeah, that law got passed in 2000, and I didn't know about it. And some more stuff like so like I was saying, it gets pretty crazy intertwined. I have this fella I called my mentor for years, but Rob Raleigh is his name. He's passed away now, and he was the first 20-acre legal tax grower in Washington State, or the United States, or the world, you could probably say. But yeah, he had the first legal 20-acre farm. It was in Washington under their program, and he had been growing for years and years and years and years. He actually walked the entire hippie trail back between 70 and like 89. And that was when people used to travel around the world to go to the sweet spots where cannabis grew wild in situ landrace. And he would go, he was blessed. His parents were Nobel Prize winning cancer researchers. So he was what we would call a trust funder. And, but he's one of those people who had money, and it made him a better person because he was able to help other people with it. And he traveled the world and collected cannabis from the places that grew naturally back in the day, and spent years and years and years breeding it together. And one day the feds came and shut him down. And luckily he had the wherewithal for hiring a proper lawyer to not go put away for 20 years or whatever. They didn't take his property, whatever. And it was all right about the same time this lawsuit went through. And unbeknownst to me, I got to know this guy skiing. We'd show up for first chairs at the ski resort and go smoke and have a prayer in the morning while we're waiting for the lifts to open. And skiing itself can be kind of a prayer all day. You're communing with nature and whatnot. But getting to know these folks there, and they all agreed that I kind of grew the best weed they ever smoked. So at one point, this fellow Rob says to me, Alex, you grow the best weed in the world, and continue. And he hands me a pack of seeds. And actually, it was a few different things. He had gathered a few different strains, some G13 and hash plant and some Northern Lights and stuff that he gave me. But it was the last pack of seeds the feds didn't get out of his life's work. 26 years, 22 land races from around the world, all mashed up. And he gave me his life's work, and I bred that to my brother's super skunky Hindu Kush, and bred that back together a couple of times. And eventually somebody in 2008 brought me San Fernando Valley OGK, and I crossed that in there, and that was the last thing that got me to where I am today with my mothership plant that I've been. But basically, it's 60 years between three scientists. My brother, my mentor, and me, and I'm like the least of the educated scientists in the group. But I'm taking it now and breeding it out to other land races and getting it to where there's amazing medicine available for other people. That's basically what got me on the Future Cannabis Project and introduced me to you was getting those seeds out to the world. And we figured like, man, I got to tell my story so people know what these seeds are about. And yeah, so basically I've been breeding since '85 off and on, and I got a handle on it. Went to college to understand it, and I produced some good stuff. And then it turns out that I have a First Amendment right to do it. I'm an outlaw, and I'm not an outlaw. So it's sacred plant, sacred. I've healed myself. I've had more than that one story with opiates I've dealt with, and doctors have almost killed me in other instances with prescription for ear infection, for instance, put me into fucking renal failure. I went from having a headache with a sinus to pissing blood and can't get off the floor because of the pills it gave me. They interacted with the coffee and beer, and they gave me renal failure. And I told the guy I drink coffee and beer, but he was a Mormon doctor and didn't even consider that somebody would, didn't read the chart. And so it's a crazy thing. But I've had 3 warrantless searches of the home, and they were literally flying a helicopter on, coming after me a 4th time when I found out about this whole law I helped get passed through Congress 20 years or 15 years prior at that point. And like, wait a second. My buddy who was a student of mine through one of the online courses of these groups, PFA, where I was teaching living soil. He says, what is it? He's like, you got to check this shit out. You need to protect yourself. You deserve to be able to produce your own medicine and stuff. I was just teaching about tomatoes and basil and stuff, and just barely producing enough for myself and some other people at the time. And he's like, I kept getting shut down. I literally have PTSD from the cops, chasing all the shit I've gone through over the years, and machine guns in Mexico, right? I was kicked out of my bed at 18 by police because I smoked. Mom kicked me out of the house and stuff, etc. I've smoked a joint with her since then. She didn't smoke it just afterwards. The whole thing with the legality, they came after me several times, and like awareness. I don't know if the Great Spirit tells me or whatever, but every time I was able to be like a step ahead of them, scrub the house out, whatever, and shit was scrubbed when they were flying the helicopter. And Pete told, that's what I was. He says, you need to take a look at this, and I look at the law, and I'm like, yeah, if I lived on a reservation, sure. He says, no, you need to look closer. And I look at it, I'm like, oh wow, man, that gives me some rights at my home. But I'd have to go to the Supreme Court to back this up if they came knocking. He's like, no, look at it. And I look at it, and this did go to the Supreme Court right here in Utah. And I look at the dates, I'm like, man, that was me. I did this. And so it was like, yeah, this is really kind of, and I mentioned it to my mentor like 2 years later. He's like, yeah, dude, that was, I paid for that. I paid the lawsuits for that. And let me tell you some more. And he starts telling me about how he had shipped a pound of flour to Hawaii. It was legally a religious sacrament and under the First Amendment and backed up by this act of Congress. And it had been confiscated by the post office, and it was destroyed. And at the time, a pound was worth $5,000. And so he's like, they start inquiring, like, hey, what happened to our package? And they're like, oh yeah, that was confiscated, destroyed. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's our religious sacraments. Like, no, you guys are trafficking drugs. And like, oh, no, there's no drugs here. This is cannabis. This is a sacrament of our church. And so they ended up going into circuit court again, and Supreme Court, the federal court circuit in the West Coast there, and they sued saying, hey, you got to pay us $5,000 for that or replace it. And the ruling was from the first case, yeah, you're right. We screwed up. We're sorry. We shouldn't have done that. But we were following standard government procedure and post office procedure. And so there's nothing we can actually do. There is no funds in the government to repatriate your loss. We're sorry. Yes, you're right. You can mail your medicine through the mail. Yes, you can send your sacraments, but we can't pay you back. We're sorry. And so he says, all right, well, we're going to take this another step. We're now suing you to prevent this from ever happening again in the future. You can't do this. And that one, they like didn't even, they just like, and they put it on the burner, and they left it there for like 2 years and never addressed it, because it's like, they knew exactly, like, yeah, but we can't even do this because the other bullshit in our freaking system says we have to. So basically, we won all three of those cases, and very well established through case law and the statute. And back in the First Amendment, enacted Congress, it says I can heal myself and I can heal others with plant medicine. And as long as I'm not like racketeering and trying to set up a dispensary, there really is nothing anyone's going to do. What it comes down to is, and especially like giving this whole story on your show or the other show or whenever I proclaim this stuff, essentially it gives them notice, and any law enforcement officer that is given this notice that, hey, this is my religious right, and there's 2 hours of me explaining, just kind of like outlining. There's so much more that I can describe my experiences and my religious background, and you know, I never got buggered by a priest, but I used to do entheogens with priests, Catholic priests, right? I used to sleep out 200 nights a year without a tent, under the stars, communing with nature. It's just like this. I mean, ain't something everyone does, right? And not everyone's gonna say. There's a lot of people who might qualify for sacred plant, sacred medicine. But most people who are just hippy dippy, who think, well, they ain't hanging their clothes on the line, right? They're not growing all their food, and they're not. There is a sincerity, a level of sincerity that this requires, right? It doesn't require you to be a Roman to be a Catholic, right? Or Irish to be Catholic, right? And the Catholics were allowed to drink their wine during Prohibition, and that is the basis of the rule, understanding of the religious rights here. And so, under our Constitution, other statutes in our Constitution state that like all these other laws that I've been harassed, harangued, and thrown in jail over cannabis over these years are what we call conspiracy under color of law, right? Or color of law. And then if the officer becomes informed thereof my rights and he continues to engage this color of law, it becomes a conspiracy under color of law, and he is liable, or she is liable to prosecution under Constitution for violating my civil rights and subject to federal prison, right? So it's a pretty powerful stance once it's taken and it's legitimate. There are people who've tried to take this stance in California and set up dispensaries, and they were shut down because it was not, legit. It was no need. That's not what I'm doing. I'm healing myself and other people. Yeah.
In my opinion, cannabis is the best medicine there is. I'm right there with you. You know, it's all about quality of life, not just So a lot of the medicines that are out there are so brutal. For what they do, what little bit of help they do give you, I don't think they provide a quality of life. It's more of a degradation of life through pharmaceutical medicine, and it's sad to see it be pushed every day on TV, commercial after
Oh,
commercial,
yeah.
and it's sickening. I was with one of my daughters the other day, and she was set back when I referred to them as drug dealers. And basically, she looked at me and she's like, "What do you mean drug dealers?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, listen to the commercial. At the end of the commercial, it isn't, uh, see if the doctor suggests this for you. It's go to your doctor and ask if this is right for you.
Yeah.
That's what you would do to a drug dealer. And
Yeah.
she looked at me like, I'm like, that's basically what a lot of them are doing. You're going and asking for things. They're not necessarily agreeing if it's right for and that's a whole nother thing too. Is why when you go to a doctor and you have ailments, how come they don't necessarily test you for your nutrition? You know what I mean? Make sure you've got everything you need before they go dealing out, you know, pharmaceutical medicines to cover up and make you sicker, and
They're,
start that
they're trained to
cycle.
sell those. The whole that so let's go back to cannabis prohibition in the start. There's multiple factors that why cannabis became illegal, and central banking is a huge part of it. Our education system, and our medical system are all intertwined. Okay, so the part of why cannabis was made illegal was because the chemical companies wanted to sell us pills. Part of the reason cannabis became illegal is because newspaper company wanted to sell us newspapers made from the trees that they had just bought, and at the same time, cannabis was they developed a piece of machinery that made it really easy to separate all the parts and produce paper cheaply, right? Superior paper. Um, Cannabis is illegal because there was a fella named Anslinger who was a racist bitch who wanted to keep his job in the government persecuting people, right? So alcohol prohibition went away. He invented cannabis prohibition by saying Mexicans become rapists when they smoke cannabis, and that black jazz musicians are going to take your women from you, right? And but they didn't call it cannabis; they called it marijuana, right? And all
That's
of a
why I don't
sudden,
like that term.
yeah. So DuPont, at the same time, DuPont comes out with monofilament plastics, right? So, but hemp had been the largest product in the world just for wars were fought over the fiber, right? The hemp fiber trade. That's what the War of 1812 was. It was so canvas sales, cannabis, same word, Dutch translation. Okay, it's but canvas sales were made for cannabis. Linen was originally all made from cannabis. All of our ropes were all made from cannabis, right? And then we had hundreds of medicines. There was a couple of hundred medicines registered in like 1900, various concoctions of cannabis. Some of them mixed with opiate and all sorts of other weird stuff, but that was the pharmacopoeia back. But so they wanted to sell us pills because they knew anyone can grow a plant, but not everyone can compound chemistry, press it into a pill. And at the same time, they took over the medical association, developed it, I should say, and developed the training. And so all the doctors are trained that you fix things with a pill. And most of them have no knowledge of health. Most of the doctors I have ever gone to for my own needs, it's generally just surgeries that I will even talk to a doctor for. They're usually obese, and I'm doing my freaking best to get them to start doing yoga and eat right and exercise and just go for a fucking walk, right? But there's like I had a surgery once, and the guy like agreed to trade me oil paintings or pastel paintings for the remodel in exchange for the price of the surgery. It was still $12,000 after he wrote off his. I think I paid $1,000 to him, but like, his wife didn't want any of my artwork, but he still just as a courtesy just wrote off $5,000 of his bill. Right? That's his boom for 4 hours cutting on me was $4 freaking grand. Right? Just like it's outrageous how yeah, and part of that was all these different chemicals that they were putting into me, and it's that 16 grand or whatever. It's nuts. So yeah, they don't know. I got charged $270. I got an abscess tooth that got up and went in my whole fucking head. Like, I got to get an antibiotic. I went in there for 15 minutes. I spent and taught the guy about cannabis medicine, told him about my head, and he wrote me a prescription. It was 240 bucks, and I was teaching him about cannabis medicine. He mentioned he had just been licensed to didn't know anything about it, so I started giving him the basic cannabis lesson. It's like I guess I really need the antibiotic. I was dying. My head was about to explode from abscess, but.
So, do you think if you were ahead that known the abscess was coming, do you think you could have got ahead of it with, like, say, some RSO?
No, I got a busted tooth. It's been broken for a year and a half, and they capped it, and the infection got in under the temporary cap. And I've been treating with stuff, but it was Thanksgiving. I went off. I love to bake, and I went off. I made a bunch of apple pies, and I wrecked myself with apple pies, and they got in there, and the infection went to shit. There's not a whole lot you can do once it starts going. I did actually when it started to swell. I was using RSO to try it. It was one of the gnarlier infections I've had. I've had a few bad ones in my life. I ended up having a residual sinus green blob for a month afterwards. Right? It was literally I was starting to get big old fucking lumps were starting to form up on the back of my head and shit around my face. Like, I couldn't eat, and my teeth were loosening up. And it was a real. I've had a few. So I don't. When I finally started realizing how fucked up my body was, I went through all the injuries to start with. I didn't know. I actually was in so much pain. I would be blinded. I had to quit firefighting, and I broke my neck the second time. My daughter came along, and I started tree service, and literally I would climb trees and come home and just lay on the floor and wanted to be dead. And I chambered a bullet more than once, and my daughter's face would just come up for me, right? And I was never suicidal. I just not 6-7 days of excruciating pain where, like, it'd be ringing in my ears and my eyes glazed over. And my little girl rocking me, going, "Daddy, feed me, I'm hungry." And I couldn't move. And it broken my neck the second time is why I quit firefighting. Didn't know it, and the doctors look at me and like, "Dude, you look like Odysseus. There's nothing wrong with you. You might have carpal tunnel and hypertension." It's like, fuck, I live in the forest and smoke weed. I don't got hypertension. And 22 doctors over 20 years told me I had carpal tunnel. Because when I first started fighting fire, I'd wake up at night, my arms would be all like clenched and just super pained and locked up, and I couldn't use my hands and stuff. And I described that to him, like, "Yeah, you got the worst case of carpal tunnel I ever had." But it wasn't. It was my nerves. They come out. It's the same nerve right here, pinched up right here. The C4, the 5, 6, 6, 7 is all crushed and was never set. So it's all just. And if I don't do stuff, it's not so bad. But like, if I do things, it can feel like I can wake up and my hands feel like I'm running a jackhammer, right? But I'm not moving at all. It's just what it feels like. And it's like this pulse of pain going through like that. And, so I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was in pain. And nurse I had known and climbed trees for, and she's like, "Dude, you're the strongest man I ever knew, and you are not anymore. You need help." And she sent me to this free clinic that all the legal aliens go to and such, right? And undocumented workers, whatever. And so I went in there and started talking to them and like, what can we do for you? I'm like, well, I'm in a lot of pain. I'd like to figure it out. And like, well, where does it hurt? I'm like, pretty much from here down to about here. And the guy laughs and assumes I'm an opiate addict out for drugs at the height of the opiate crisis, right? I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I ended up spending 3 hours talking to this guy, trying to explain to him I'm not after drugs. I want to know why it hurts, and I grow my own, and I've been doing it for years, and I have great weed, but just like, why is the pain getting worse? I was doing carpentry at the time. Um, I got put in jail on false charges after they came through here with couldn't find nothing. Look, and I lost my farm and went to work for carpentry for a friend of mine, and I'd be crying because I was in so much fucking pain half the day. I built the copper still to make moonshine to help relax the muscles a little bit. And I just sipped a little, teeny little bit, and that shit does the trick sometimes. But I never drank another sip of it after I figured out what the fuck was wrong. And they ended up at this free clinic. They ended up giving me some MRIs and showing me that my neck had been broken. And but he spent 3 hours drilling me that I was after opiates, and finally sees that and like, oh, you land on your head at some point. And it took about 18 months to really figure it all out, that I didn't have carpal tunnel, that I'd broken my neck, that I had all this crushed discs, and there's not a single disc in my spine that has cupping left, right? It's all worn flat. Every vertebra, I mean, and then every disc in between has compression issues. There's only one or two that isn't close to full. And so I was just in pure saturated pain, not even knowing what I'd be smoking this killer weed that I grew and selected for that made the trick. I could be friends with it. Um, teaching in PFA, I started learning about different ways I could use the extracts as a topical. That saved my life today. As a topical, I was laying on the floor, just wanted to be dead. It was so much pain, crying. A storm flows through here, and I sometimes collapse for muscle spasms. And I'm like, man, that guy sent me topical, and I put some of that topical on. And 10 minutes later, I was doing chores around the house. I'm like, wait a second. I've tried fucking every snake oil in the world and snake venom. I've tried opiates, alcohol, nothing to stop this fucking pain. And that just, no wonder the shit's illegal. It works. Yeah, so I actually, next time the storm came through, I'm like, all right, I got to test this. I only put it on one side of my back. And 10 minutes later, it's like, no fucking shit. This is the real deal. And then I started learning about titrating coconut oil and doing different strengths of that, the same stuff I give to the cancer patients with the black pico ash oil, the RSO. It's not activated. And activated at the same amount I take, if it's raw THCA, I can eat that and go rump a mountain or ski all day long and just feel like a baby. If I eat the RSO where it's activated, I pass out in less than 45 minutes. The same by weight volume. That's all part of the whole. Like, I started doing that for the cancer patients instead of knocking them out and giving them the THCA, and so you can function still and be awake and alive and go to work if you need to once you're adapted to that. It's pretty awesome. But again, it comes back around, and here I am doing a hell of a lot better than I was 5 years ago before I knew that stuff and was just smoking the weed still. Yeah,
I just want to say it's kind of a bitch when you go into the doctor there and because I'm the same way. I refuse the pharmaceutical. It's just toxic bullshit. So when I go in, I jokingly say on the show, I don't go in to see a doctor unless it's either one or two things. I've cut something off and it's like, can you put this back on? Or I've hurt myself in another way and it's like, can you pull this out or can you sew this up?
right.
Usually, other than that, I don't want to go. I'll take my chances.
Yeah.
But when you do have to go in, like you say, and you tell them right off the bat, because that's their go-to. Yeah, here you go. Here's the medicine. Get out of here. And you go, oh, no. That's not why I came. Keep your voodoo medicine. I want to know exactly the extent of the damage I'm in, and is it gonna be repaired? Am I gonna have to tough this out and I'll be okay, or are you gonna have to fix this but I don't want the medicine. And once you say that, then now they look at you like you're now you have to fight for your seriousness of your
Yeah.
injury because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you don't want no pain. Oh, it can be hurt, and you're like, no, no, it hurts like a motherfucker. Excuse my language if you don't
Right.
swear. It hurts terribly, but I don't want your medicine. And then you have to like you there's that back
Well, it's
and
not
forth. You're like,
medicine. It's
no,
a
come on.
drug.
Yeah, play with me. Take an x-ray. You'll see it's really hurting, but you actually have to it's like you say, it's hours before you get to there. Once you say keep your voodoo medicine, you have to now it's a lot of back and forth with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's still, and it took 18 months actually to get the third MRI of the thoracic zone that showed like, oh, and when he saw that, like they're like, oh man, you got a bunch of stuff messed up in you, but it doesn't add up to all the pain you're talking about. And then they see the thoracic, and he says, oh, and he writes me a freaking tramadol prescription. Now, tramadol is like the worst synthetic fucking opiate there is. It's like one of the most addictive, fat, it's super gnarly shit. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. He says, take one in the morning with caffeine and one at night without. You'll be able to do whatever you want. And it's like, no, fuck. Like, he's like, that's what I use. He's 70 years old with like 9 screws in his spine, right? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm 45 and I'm gonna go ski again after I heal myself. But apparently he's
Yeah.
skiing on tramadol.
It's scary. I mean,
Right, right.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's yeah. It's so scary on so many levels. Not only like are you just masking, you're fooling your body that you shouldn't be there, but are you really there? I mean, at that point, there's a couple levels. Like, are you really there? You
No,
know what I
no.
mean?
Yeah, you're not. You're in. I never found opiates to actually kill the pain. They mask it or they make you stupid so you don't know, you don't care about it, right? That's what it seems like to me. You all of a sudden you're happy. You got dopamine flowing like motherfucker. That's what opiates are, right? So you don't care that you're in pain. It's still there. Um, smoking weed, unless depending on what your pain is, big old dab will release some serious muscle tension pretty quick. But just smoking weed and you got pain issues, that just makes you friends with it. It's those THCA I find when you eat them raw or those topicals that really cause inflammation to go away, and that's what causes pain is inflammation, for the most part. Um, here's a story, um, about medicine. So one of my patients was selling fresh vegetables, herbs, and stuff at the farmers market, and I'd done 17 years at that market. And I showed up, and there's this guy selling pottery. This beautiful ceramics, but you could see this guy was in pain. You can just see it. You can tell when somebody's hurting, right? Um, pardon me. He was big fella, and it looks like he'd been putting on some weight. And but he'd hold himself, just like trying to hold himself, and his face would just be paisley white and drawn. And you'd see him interact with people and try and be friendly and stuff, but he was striving for it. And so we get to talking, and he gets to talking to some other people, and somebody else actually, yeah, he's like, you need to talk to Alex more. And because I used to like hook up all the farmers, and we get to talking, and he'd been eating crushed press weed. It was the only thing he could find was Mexi press weed. And this is like 8 years ago. You still can only find. I mean, maybe it was even 6 years ago. Um, so like, no, 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 no. I gave him what I had for myself. Like, you take this, and we'll get you hooked up. The girl there got him on lavender. So, he had gone off to war, blew out his back, got blown out, lifting heavy stuff, and he had 2 failed surgeries. Okay, so he was on disability and was hurting pretty bad and was trying to make a living on the side doing pottery. Um, And so we got him. He couldn't sleep from the pain. He wasn't eating properly because of the pain. And you know, it was just misery. And so one person got him on lavender essential oil, helped him sleep. And I like took him up with proper food, got him eating right, and then got him proper cannabis. And we got to be good friends. And I started teaching him not just about medicine, but mind, and got him thinking. And I nudged him into some schools of what do you call it? The occult, right? Not cults, but the occult, deep knowledge. And like his dad was Israeli special forces, so he started understanding things on a whole different level. And then he started coming to me and teaching me shit about the occult that I hadn't learned about yet myself. He started taking it so far. But in the 2 years that I was working with him, healing him, he had gone to court several times and even professed that, like, no, I'm working with this medicine man. This is my First Amendment right, and I'm using plant medicine. I don't want your drugs. I don't want. This is what I'm going to do. And the judge is like, and all the lawyers are like, but after 2 years, we went through 27 different strains of cannabis, working through his chemistry changes, right? His mind and body change. And after we were all done, I did not realize that I thought he was on 2 or 3 meds. He said he had been on 9 fucking prescriptions that he took every single day. He took a prescription for pain. He took a prescription for fucking blood pressure because the pain pills. He took a prescription for depression. He took a prescription for something to deal with the side effects of the depression pill, right? And it was just like this cocktail of, and there's people with like 30 of these things that they're taking every fucking day, and all they need to do is eat a little bit of weed, and it takes care of 90% of that. You can't cold turkey though. You know, my mom started cold turkey off of the same kind of shit that my girlfriend died from, and she started going in like, "Oh, mom, stop, don't." Luckily, she was having those thoughts, so we were able to get her to like wean it properly. And mom doesn't smoke, but I got her just telling her this stuff. Got her off of 2 or 3. She still uses a couple, but she had a stroke and had some hard times. And like, yeah, we don't need all these chemicals in us. It's not like exercise, breathing. Wim Hof is the person most of us might know of, but that stuff is amazing. I learned about that stuff long before I was doing ice baths. Actually, I was swimming with icebergs in 2000 up in Alaska, buck naked. But I've been doing in '89. I think I started doing my first ice water in the high Sierras. And hyperthermia is an amazing drug in the proper dose. But don't overdo it. If you overdo it, you can't come back. Man, yeah. So he was on 9 different freaking prescriptions. The last thing I did with him on his healing journey was took him walking in the night with Little Smoke. We went on a mushroom walk up on a ridge, and I was wearing sandals, and it kind of blew his mind. It was like, you just walk through the night across the gnarliest mountain I've ever freaking been on, and you're on sandals and dancing most of the time. If you could do that, what else is possible? And literally, it was like a week later, he gets a phone call. It's like, yeah, we have been following you. You're not disabled anymore. You're off disability. And all about the same time his wife divorced him. Like, man, best thing that ever happened to you. You're starting fresh. So he's now an animal. He really he does amazing pottery. He teaches pottery. He sells pottery at art shows, and he's developed a COVID regime for selling pottery out of his garage. Yeah, yeah. It's the ripple. Because he's able to teach people, right, and changes other people's perspectives of what is proper, or what you can do, and yeah.
I, I I believe in that a lot. I believe in that kind of stuff a lot. In fact, uh, rather than get into a whole lot of stuff here, well, I was gonna check in because I know I've seen you yawn a couple of times, and I know it's way past your bedtime. You've been
Oh,
super gracious enough to
yeah, yeah,
sit,
yeah, yeah.
drink some coffee. How are we doing? Are you still good? You should we check
I,
out sometime soon?
I'm rambling. I can ramble. I have no idea how long I've been rambling. Um,
Oh man, well,
but
that's for one. I want to make this clear: the people that watch this show and the people that are in this community love the rambles. We love to hear people's stories, and the cannabis stories, the spiritual journeys. That's why if you go back and watch your episode with Future Cannabis Project, because you can see the chat.
uh-huh.
I mean, you can see Evil Gardens in there. I'm like, this dude's, I love this guy's story. He's a perfect fit for my show. Peter, you have to give me his info.
Nice, nice. Right on,
You
right
know
on.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
So,
I'm happy to talk and tell the story. It's and like I said, what I'm saying tonight is it's if you go there and listen to that one, you're gonna get a bigger picture, right? I can't say it all in 2 hours. We're talking 35 years of things happening here or more, and so yeah, I'm grateful to tell the story and let people know, it's the, my only paradigm is crushing paradigms, right? The change is the only constant in the universe, and it's been a long fight. I, like things I talked about. I went and talked before the Governor Brown in '91 or something, '92, and talked about cannabis back then. Just keep it going. It is a slow churn, keep growing and getting people their rights. It's just a plant. Um, yeah, I'm happy to tell the story and expand people's minds.
because, well, I wanted to check in because, well, this is why I asked because if you're down to stay, yeah, I, I, we're good. We're good. We're good.
So no, my normal sleep schedule is I'm usually like passed out of sleep by 9 o'clock and up at 3 in the morning.
See, I've almost got your schedule completely spun around.
Right,
Well,
right,
this
right,
is where I'm getting at. If it's up to you. This is completely up to you because I'd love to have you back either way. Either way.
right,
But I
right.
like to keep when I enjoy somebody's company, I like to keep it to where they're enjoying, you know. I don't like it to where they're exhausted and like, oh, that was an experience. I don't know if I want to get down to
Well,
another episode like that.
something I
So it's
don't
up to
get
you.
enough. I don't get enough good conversation. I get so deep into conversation, it scares away most people that I encounter firsthand. You see some of these threads I get into, and I'm jumping off of thought runs, right, and coming back in. Most people just can't deal with more than about 30 seconds of that. At least the ski. It depends if it's a topic you're interested in. You're going to be interested in it, but most people, like when I start taking things in the spiritual realm, they just like, dude, you're talking about shit I just don't understand, man. And it's like, and the spirit realm to me is the same as the math realm and the physics realm. So it's like it really fucks with people's heads when you start talking with that shit. I don't get to talk it very often. So I'm happy to
And
come back and talk some more.
yeah, well, like I said, I don't want to. Well, you know, time is a very precious thing, and I don't want to mess up your day for tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking. But I'm telling you
I
what.
did get a rare treat tonight. My daughter asked to spend the night. So she's actually
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot about that as
that,
well. My
but the morning is she's just we don't do a whole lot, but she just sits on the couch and watches videos and stuff. But we'll interact tomorrow and do some artwork and stuff in the morning when we get up and we
yeah.
do.
So yeah, I should probably let you get some rest so you can get up
Hey,
and enjoy that time. But know this, I definitely, please, I want you back because, you
We
know,
can we can do a show talking. I can talk IPM. I can
you,
talk soil. I can talk breeding. We can talk various strain, like rudimentary. I'm not so up on the modern super hybrids. Like I got a clue on some of that stuff, but most of there's so many people crossing shit and naming names, right? I, I'm a land race, and I got my core genetics. I literally have 500 genetics in my vault, of which like I've made 300 myself, and a huge selection of hemp. No, we can talk about the future of hemp, and infrastructure needs and things like that. I all that stuff. I'm happy talking all these kinds of things.
well, let's put it this way. I don't normally, everybody that this is 323 episodes of this. I don't I don't come to these episodes. I slide in right before. I tell everybody 11:30, and if you actually check in, I'll let them sit there in there in the waiting room until like 11:28. You probably got a taste of that tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Well,
do that I do it on purpose because I like to keep the conversation just as genuine as it can be. I don't
sure.
like for us to have to repeat for each other. And there's another thing. I come in with this. I sit down and I don't have no questions. I freehand this as best as I can every night. But with you, things were a little different. When I watched you the other night, it, there's like you ever have like obviously the medicine man story, that connection. You're like, this guy's got something to tell me. So that's kind of when I watched you
Cool.
on the Future Cannabis
I,
Project the other night. I was like, I got a feeling this
it,
guy's
it,
got something. There's
it
that
warms me
connection.
to hear. It warms me to hear from folks. I literally, when I was teaching on PFA and Facebook, there'd be like 30,000 people in there, and I try and teach, and trolls would come in and just beat me down. And like I'm empathic. I feel like I can take that shit personally, and I feel like I try and like. But at some point, I become a mirror, and I start vibrating back at them at the same fucking frequency, right? And all of a sudden, I'm the asshole. So I was wasting so much energy and time with all that, and it's just like it's so frustrating. And then every once in a while, somebody would send me a private message or a text, and some of it was like CEOs of big corporations, like, Alex, don't let those people get to you. You're helping so many freaking people. But it's like it's the nature of the beast. Like no matter how much I try and avoid it, I attract it. That's how things work, right? So I finally got to the point where it's like I got to leave this. Like I can't. And but I still want to help people. I still want to teach. I still want to expand people's knowledge to make the world a better place for all of our great great grandchildren's grandchildren, right? And that's really why I'm pretty stoked about. I saw someone saying they want to hear about breeding. It's like, well, there's stuff that I breed for reasons like I said, how much freaking plastic could we throw in the landfill because we've outbred stem strength, right? And it's so simple to breed it back in and maintain, and it's still proper crop and not have to use. There's other things you can do to increase stem strength. I'm like, you look at my Instagram account and you'll see me every once in a while. I almost did one today. I might do it tomorrow. Actually, I got to do this, and I should show it. But I'll take a stick and beat the shit out of my plants when they're in transition. I take a big stick and I'll beat the shit out of them. If you don't got enough wind pushing them around, their stems ain't going to strengthen up, right? But in nature, wind's blowing constantly, and it ruptures cells and it builds to scar tissue and it builds a strength up. In nature, these landrace plants, some of them get huge and fall over, but for the most part, they don't really need structural support.
I'm only smiling because the other night, this is how close. In fact, this is how much we resonate. Well, at least I noticed that we resonate. That's what I should say. For one, I've actually been kind of excited to do this ever since I seen you the other day. If you kind of checked out some of these shows, you'd see me mention it every night. And I'm inviting you to go back and watch last night's Rabbit Hole. At least rewinded probably about an hour it was pretty lengthy. So at least an hour from the end is where I really kind of get to where I'm talking about you. And we actually talked about you for a while. But what I'm smiling about here in this instance is the other night I had seedlings. I've got seedlings I need to transplant up into their cups. But I brought them out on air and I showed that I had, at that point it was a 99% germ rate. And I was like, oh, just this little guy. And I took the top off and I took my pencil or this pen and I'm like, you guys should do this. I do this a couple of times a day when they're at this point. And I just went blop, blop, blop. I ran them back and forth, knocked them over. And everybody that was like, I should do that. I'm like, you should do that. It
Yeah,
strengthens them
you
up. It's really
you should
good for
definitely
them.
do that. Yeah, no, I do that with my seedlings. I go through with my hand on the seedlings actually, and I'll knock them around like that to build stem strength. It's totally knowledge right there, dropping it.
But I'm telling you, I do. I'm hoping to schedule you back real soon. I don't ask people back frequently, to be honest
Cool,
with
cool,
you. And
cool.
to
Yeah,
for
no,
to
I could do a IPM lecture, concepts of IPM and its origins and how it evolved, and instead of just like I throw this, I throw that, I threw this, right? Because there's all sorts of solutions. There's no one right way, but understanding the concept is having a full understanding is different than having a belief, right? And I'm all about understanding. I have beliefs. I got photographs and video of UFO that I've captured. I've seen a whole lot more than I've never photographed or videoed, right? I hardly talk about those. I tell the story of the ones that I have pictures of, and people call me a liar.
Tim, I believe that. Tim Blake was another one that was a run fun interview, and I'm putting you right next to Tim Blake, man. He was a fun one. And, I just as we've talked tonight, I've already started to put together like a short list. You know, frequency, spirituality, and cannabis, dry farming, your painting, and then I haven't even got into breeding and growing yet. So you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Right there, I bet you we probably got another 4 hours we could probably talk.
oh, I sure, yeah. No,
So,
it's all lessons. I used to integrate I used to love to integrate teaching skiing and art, and I would use the two of them to teach the other one, right? And try to explain when I'm teaching art. It's like, take a risk. This is what I do on my skis. I could die. This is just paint. It costs you a couple bucks. Take a risk. See what happens. Yeah, there's a lot of parallels though in your skill level building, and it's the same with cannabis growing. It's like I started out the first time, few times, totally failed, but now I hand my grass to whoever, and I was like, whoa, do that, like, because do I have to take a third hit? It's not because it was bad. It's because like I'm not gonna be able to move if I take a third hit.
I usually take the third hit.
I mean, this morning, I don't remember taking a third hit. I think I had two, and I passed out at some point. I mixed the wrong two. Yeah, I'm pretty sure though it was Malawi Gold was the second hit. I know that shit's extremely potent. I usually only smoke it first thing early in the morning, but it knocked me out for about 2 hours.
Sometimes it happens like that. You don't intend it, but it's the way I see it. It's in the cards.
Sure,
You know
sure.
what I
No, my
mean? Your
body.
body needed it. You
Yep.
know what I mean? It was
Oh
pre
no,
meant to be.
I wouldn't have toked. I would not have toked if my body wasn't tweaking. We had a big old storm move through, and my body is a barometer. And most storms, I'm in a lot of freaking pain, and doesn't matter how much RSO or pico I eat. I got to stretch or just lay there with a blanket over me and go to sleep and wait for it to pass. Get up and go back to work. But that's PTSD too. I get up and sometimes it's like I'm afraid to move. Has my muscles relaxed yet? It's tough. I deal with it daily. It's being alive, you know. Um, it's a big difference from jumping off cliffs going backwards with just your toes attached to skis. Where I was once upon, and again, I would never trade a single thing I did to get to the state where I am now, because it's all the relative experience to be able to tell these stories and stuff, right? And we only live in this body once. I kind of believe that, like, that my mentor and I have intertwined through many lifetimes, doing great things for people. Um, yeah, that's a belief. I can't say I know that as an understanding. I understand everyone else's beliefs towards those concepts, but there's no way for us to truly know, because the belief is that all knowledge is gets scrubbed, right? And we go into these interludes with our teachers and our um, entheogens, our plant teachers, or our guides or whatever, and we seem to be given this knowledge. It's like, yeah, life is eternal, and it's just this body, and we don't actually die. You know, you're all one. Everything is one thing, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
why do they give us
I'm
pills?
holding back.
Yeah,
I'm holding back here. I
why
said
do
I'm
they?
holding back because I know that I rightfully need to let you go. But I'm telling you, we're gonna get in. We're gonna get in deep. I'm telling you,
Go.
I can actually see that I'm actually just probably juicing you up, because I can see, like, I'm kind of an empath too. And I can see that your energy's going up. You're probably not going to go to sleep right off and getting
Oh,
off the
no,
call.
yeah, I have to wind down. I'm definitely gonna have to wind down.
So I don't want to continue to do that. So,
Cool.
let's try to wind this back down a little
Sure,
bit,
sure.
because I don't want to. I want you to enjoy that special day
I
with your daughter.
I
So
tell people, it's like, man, you got to say goodbye, or I will continue to talk your ear off. Like, and this is just me. I talk, and it's not it's any situation, and so it's all cool. And I do probably should go to start resting.
no, and trust me, I do want to hear it. I just don't want to. I don't want you. I don't want to roil that special time with your daughter. I cherish. I can understand that time with family. I've got a daughter. I don't get to see that often, and when I see her, you know,
Well,
I try to just pause everything.
I'm coming full. I'm coming to the point in my life where it's like, yeah, I'm getting to where it's like, okay, I still have work to do, but like I just handed her skiing. Like I've been trying to get her to ski and get her to really enjoy it, but now she's skiing with her boyfriend, right? It's like she ain't skiing with me anymore, and it's like, yeah, she's got it, and she's having a happy lifetime, and yeah, but yeah, a couple of minutes tomorrow for me is gonna be good, whatever we end up doing.
Yeah,
So.
get that time, brother. Get that time. Couple things I want to tell you, get from you before you go, and I
Sure.
am going to be contacting you late. Well, not tomorrow, because I know you'll be with your daughter, but
Well,
I'll get a hold
just
of you Monday about
I
getting you back on.
punch messages to me, and you're fine. You're there, and that stuff doesn't go off on my phone or whatever. I just check my messages, so you can hit me there, and that's fine.
Okay. Well, until we get you back on, this goes standard. This is standard for everybody on the way out. Is every guest, I do the wormhole. That's what will come after the show, and that's what I'm inviting you to go back and watch. It's 322, 322, the end of 322, the wormhole, and you'll get a kind of a good gist about me and
Sure,
the
yeah.
the pre up to this.
Yeah. No,
But
I just didn't have time before to check any of them out, but yeah, I'm glad I
that's
found you.
fine. Well, what the wormhole is, like every night I do go live from 11:30 ish to 4:20, and if we go short, then I open it up to past guests, or if I don't have a guest, then it's a wormhole night. So the Zoom numbers are always the same. So keep that Zoom invitation,
All
and
right.
anytime if you do start to follow the show, you do become a friend of the show and want to hang out and chat or whatever, uh, anytime you see a wormhole, you don't need an invitation. You just pop that link and come on. Anytime
Roger.
you want to get on, just jump right in. So that's your invitation. Please keep that,
Cool.
and that's a more for everybody type show. So there could be multiple guests in on
Sure,
that.
sure.
But I do want to reschedule you for the one-on-one because I've got a lot of one-on-one for you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, and like you said, I know it's not your standard asking questions and stuff, but if you got them, I'm happy. Yeah, you see, you ask me a question, and it sets a whole series of response off when I get a question. If I'm just rambling, I tend to ramble and like, where was I going? But yeah, so cool, cool.
the one last thing I want to get from you before I let you go and say goodbye is it's kind of corny, but it's the old school like soundbite. So basically, in my words, not yours, and this is my example, is this is what I'm looking for is hey, this is Eagle Gardens and I'm on fucking talking shit with Eagle episode tonight's 323. You can make it your own, but that's what I'm looking for. This is like your advertisement for this episode. So can you give
Right?
me your soundbite? It's recording and ready anytime you are, my friend.
Hey, folks, this is Harti Gear, and I'm on Talking Shit with Eagle Gardens, episode 322. And you're having a good night, too. Appreciate you guys for checking in.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on, taking the time. Again, I understand you had a long day. Your daughter, taking time away from your daughter, that's huge. So, thank you
It was
so
it was
much. I
it
am
was
very
bonus.
much.
We were scheduled before she asked. I was literally driving off the ski mountain when she asked if she could come over. So it's all good. It's all good.
I still would have thought about canceling or rescheduling. You can't get that time. So thank you for
Yep.
bending, making us both fit in there. So, and I am very much looking forward to getting you back on. You will see, some messages in your DM. So thank you very much. Get some rest and enjoy your day with your daughter tomorrow. We will
Have a
be
good
talking
wormhole.
most definitely soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much for letting me share, and we'll be chatting soon.
Okay. Have a great
All
night.
right.
Have a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
For the rest of you guys who want to come hang out with me in the wormhole in a few minutes, please do so. But for the rest of you who do not, you guys know the routine. Please do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives. I'm a living, breathing example of that. Thank you so much for tuning in on this amazing episode with me and Harti Gear, Alex Harti. It was an amazing episode, and I am very, very much looking forward to having him back. So give me a few minutes to stretch and refill my coffee, and we'll get this wormhole going. Thank you so much for tuning in.